Hello everyone, I'm Michael and welcome to Reading at Home. Have you ever been to a farm? Maybe you've pretended to be a farmer like me. Do you like my hat? On a farm you can feed the cows or shear a sheep. You can even ride a horse. Giddy up. Actually, that's given me an idea. Would you like to hear a story? Let's hear a story all about a very young farmer. Yeehaw!
Reading at home.
Hi, I'm Wendy, and today we're going to read a story about Young MacDonald. It's written and illustrated by Giuseppe Poli. When I read, I like to get nice and comfortable on the couch, so I'm ready to listen. Let's get started. Young MacDonald. Old MacDonald had a son, E-I-E-I-O, and young MacDonald had a bicycle, E-I-E-I-O, with a ting-a-ling here and a ting-a-ling there, here a ting, there a ting, everywhere a ting-a-ling. Young MacDonald had a bicycle, E-I-E-I-O. And on that bicycle he had a digger, E-I-E-I-O, with a dig dig here and a dig dig there, here a dig, there a dig, everywhere a dig dig. Young MacDonald had a bicycle digger, E-I-E-I-O. And on that bicycle digger he had a pirate ship, E-I-E-I-O, with a splash splash here and a splash splash there, here a splash, there a splash, everywhere a splash splash. Young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship, E-I-E-I-O. And on that bicycle digger pirate ship he had a helicopter, E-I-E-I-O, with a chopper chopper here and a chopper chopper there, here a chopper, there a chopper, everywhere a chopper chopper. Young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter, E-I-E-I-O. And on that bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter he had a submarine, E-I-E-I-O, with a burble burble here and a burble burble there, here a burble, there a burble, everywhere a burble burble. Young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter submarine, E-I-E-I-O. And on that bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter submarine he had a rocket, E-I-E-I, whoa, with a zoom zoom here and a zoom zoom there, here a zoom, there a zoom, everywhere a zoom zoom. Young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter submarine rocket, E-I-E-I-O. And on that bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter submarine rocket he had a yawn, E-I-E-I-O. After a zoom zoom here and a burble burble there, here a chopper, there a splash, everywhere a dig dig, young MacDonald had an amazingly incredible, fantastical adventure, E-I-E-I-O. And that's the end of the story. Do you like to pretend and use your imagination? It looks like young MacDonald had lots of fun using his imagination on the farm. I wonder, do you remember all the wonderful machines young MacDonald drove on the farm? There was a lot to remember. Sometimes I need to go back to the story to help me to remember all the interesting details. I've got something different today. I brought in my story cube, and my story cube helps me to remember the different parts of the story. It has a picture and a word. Let's see if my story cube can help me to remember. Do you remember what came first on the farm? That's right. It was a bicycle, and the bicycle went ting-a-ling, ting-a-ling. Now what came next? On that farm, young MacDonald had a bicycle digger, and the digger went dig, 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 dig. Now what came next? On his farm, young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship, and the pirate ship went splash, splash, splash. Now what came next? On the farm, young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter, and it went chopper, 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 chopper. Now what came next? That's right. On the farm, young MacDonald had a bicycle digger pirate ship helicopter submarine, and it went burble, 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 burble. And there was one last thing young MacDonald had on the farm. Do you remember? That's right, it was a rocket, and the rocket went zoom, 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 zoom. Oh, that was a lot to remember, wasn't it? Sometimes a story cube might help you to remember the interesting parts of a story. I wonder, could you retell your favourite story at home?
Thanks, Wendy. I love the way that young MacDonald used his imagination to turn the things around him into a wild adventure. I'd love to do the same thing with you, but using arts and crafts. I'm going to use my imagination to hop onto my horse and ride around here to see what things I can find to use in the art room. We're going to make a farm of our very own. See you soon.
Reading at Home TV.
Welcome back to Reading at Home. I was just thinking what it must be like to be on a farm like young MacDonald. Brianna is going to show us how to make a little farm all of our very own using things that you can find around the house. I can't wait to see how she does it.
Art at Home.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, I'm Brianna, and today in the art room, we're going to make our own little farm animal to go on our own, very own farm, just like the one young MacDonald was on. Look, you can see I've already started making my farm. I've got some fences, they're made out of craft sticks, a barn, this one's made out of a cardboard box, and a big silo made out of a cardboard tube. You can also see I've got two animals already on this farm. I've got a pig, and the pig says, oink oink. That's right, you got it. And the cow. What noise does the cow make? Moo. But I think they need one more friend. What about an animal that makes this noise? Bah. Yes, a sheep. So to begin, we're going to make sure we have an adult around to supervise. Then we need some cotton wool balls, a paper plate, some craft sticks, cardboard, tape, and glue. First, we'll get our grown-up to help us remove the outer edge of the plate. Then we're going to take our plate and stick down 4 little craft sticks, 2 on each side. These are going to be the legs of our sheep. I've even coloured in the ends to make the hooves. Sticking them down like so, we're then going to flip it over and get our glue stick. This is the fun part. We're going to start gluing on top, smothering it everywhere. Be generous with your glue, because then we're going to take the cotton wool balls and start sticking them down, like so. And you guessed it, this is going to be the wool of our sheep. Sticking them all down, and once you've got it covered, then we're going to fold our sheep in half, stand it up. We've got the body, but now for a head. Draw yourself a little face, and then tack it on, just like so. And there we have it, we've got Shazza the sheep. Now, Shazza's gonna come over here and see if she can make some friends. We've got Connie the cow and Penny the pig. You might want to make some friends at home too. And if you use your imagination like young MacDonald, they can even make noises. Bah! Moo! Oink, oink!
I think Shazza the sheep is going to be great friends with Penny the pig and Bill the bear, don't you? It's been great fun thinking about farms and farm animals. but I reckon it's time for a new story, don't you?
I do.
Well then, up next, we have a fun little story about a boy who was visited by some very unwelcome guests. See you soon. Give him a wave, Bill.
Bye.
Reading at Home TV.
Welcome back to Reading at Home. It's time for our next storybook. It's a very unwelcome guest in here. Have you ever had an unwelcome guest at your house? Well, the boy in our next story is visited by some even stranger things, and he just can't seem to shake them. Know the feeling. Excuse me, I'm going to get rid of this pesky fly while you enjoy the story. Shoo! Shoo!
Reading at Home.
Hello again, I'm Wendy, and now we're going to read this story called Oliver's Grumbles, written by Yvonne Mes and illustrated by Giuseppe Poli. Now before we get started, let's get comfy and ready to listen. Oops, make sure the book's the right way up, otherwise that might be a little bit tricky. Let's get started, shall we? Oliver's Grumbles. Anything could make Oliver smile. A beetle scuttling along, a silly song, a dancing balloon, or even the woo-woo of a passing train. But sometimes when things didn't go right, or didn't fit, or wouldn't work, or for no particular reason at all, Oliver would growl and grizzle and grumble. After a particularly grisly and growly day, Oliver woke up with grumbles in his head and grumbles in his bed. The grumbles trampled his pillow, danced on his chest and tugged on his ears. Grrr, Oliver growled. They arranged his room and knocked over his books. Oliver grumbled. At breakfast, the grumbles made a terrible mess. At snack time, it was worse. They followed Oliver and Dad to the supermarket. There they bumped into cartons of eggs, smashing them down the aisle. Shoo! Oliver waggled his finger. No more! The grumbles rolled around laughing. Oliver was furious. He stomped his feet all the way home. Those grumbles had to go. Grrr. I'll give you 3 Nutter Butter biscuits and a ride on my train if you just leave. They stayed and they ate his biscuits. Aha! You must be hungry. Eat this up, he ordered. But the grumbles had other ideas. He marched them outside. Exercise time. Go and run, he commanded. And that is just what they did. They buried his trucks in the sandpit. They ran across the clothesline. They hung upside down from the rake. And finally, they ran off with his snuggle blanket. No! Something inside Oliver popped. He stomped and howled until his face was red. He felt sore behind his eyes and he could howl no more. He had one last daring plan to get rid of those grumbles. He sagged and slumped on the soggy grass and sighed. It was going to be terribly tricky and horribly hard, but they had left Oliver no other choice. Later, while Oliver tried to brush his teeth, the grumbles were up to their usual troublesome tricks. But instead of yelling, pleading or bargaining, Oliver blew them each a little kiss. Mwah. When they squirted soapy water, Oliver took a deep breath and tickled their furry toes. He listened. Purr, purr. In bed, the Grumbles chewed on his pyjamas. Oliver didn't even blink. Instead, he read them his favourite stories and rubbed their bristly backs. He listened again. Purr, purr, purr. The Grumbles snuggled in Oliver's hair, cuddled up to his shoulder and closed their eyes, smiling once more with a sigh and a purr. Oliver, the biggest grumble of all, fell asleep. And that's the end of our story. Do you sometimes get the grumbles? We can use words to describe how Oliver is feeling in the story. Oliver was grumpy at the beginning of the story when things didn't go right. And that's when the grumbles came. Look, I've got my very own grumble here today. Don't worry, I'm not feeling grumpy today. But I do have another word for you, and it's grouchy. Do you know what grouchy means? If you're feeling grouchy, it means you're unhappy about something. What might you do if you're feeling grouchy? You might grumble or grizzle or growl, grrr, just like Oliver did in the story. Have a look at these faces. Which one of these faces shows grouchy? That's right, this one shows grouchy. Now listen to this sentence. Is this an example of grouchy? Sam had a very bad day and was feeling grouchy. Yes, if you had a bad day, you might be feeling grouchy. Now try this sentence. The colourful balloons made Sam feel so grouchy he couldn't stop smiling. No, that doesn't sound right. A better word for that sentence would be cheerful. Cheerful is the opposite of grouchy. If you're feeling cheerful, you might be happy about something. What might you do if you're feeling cheerful? You might smile, you might laugh, you might jump for joy, or even hum a happy tune. Let's look at these faces. Which one is the cheerful face? That's right, that's cheerful. I wonder what word describes how you're feeling today.
Thanks, Wendy. I too am feeling cheerful. Do you ever get the grumbles like Oliver? Well, up next, we're going to show you how to get rid of your grumbles while moving with Nicola. See you soon.
Reading at Home TV.
Welcome back to Reading at Home. It's time for us to lose the grumbles by moving with Nicola outside. Let's do it!
Moving at home.
Hi everyone, my name's Nicola. I loved reading about Oliver's grumbles. Do you know what? We all feel grumpy sometimes, and that's okay. When I feel grumpy, it's helpful to pause and take some really deep breaths. Before we start, can you make sure that you have a safe space, enough room around you to be safe? The first type of breathing we're going to do is balloon breathing. I want you to place your hands on your belly and pretend that there's a big balloon in there. We're going to fill it up. When we breathe out, we're going to let our lips go all floppy like the end of a balloon. Take a big breath in, fill up your balloon, and a breath out of your lips. 2 more times, breathe in, breathe out. 1 more, breathe in, breathe out. Did your lips tickle then? The other type of breathing I love is using my imagination. In one hand, hold your favorite flower. In the other hand, a candle. Take a breath in to smell your flower. And then blow out your candle. Breathe in. Breathe out. Smell your flower. I have a rose. And blow out your candle. I feel better already. The last type of breathing we're going to do is a dragon breath. It's the only time we're allowed to stick out our tongue. Take a big breath in, lift up your dragon wings, and a dragon breath out. This dragon's got some fire. Well done, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, Nicola. My grumbles are definitely all gone now.
Yeah, mine too. I'm feeling much better.
It's okay to be grumbly and grouchy sometimes, and that is a great way to shake off the grumbles when you are.
Now, unfortunately, we've reached the end of today's show.
We hope you've liked our storybooks today, and to continue enjoying more stories before we see you next time, you can join the Premier's Reading Challenge.
Simply visit the website on screen.
We'll see you soon for more Reading at Home.
Bye!
Authorised by the Queensland Government, Brisbane.